talk show host Bill Maher is wondering why it's okay for the left to be anti the Jewish people, to explicitly sometimes express hatred towards the Jews, which we're seeing now. The left who claim to care for the underdog and the oppressed, yet when it comes to the Jews, have a watch what he says, because he tries to unpack this sickness that we're seeing in society.
We'll stand with Hamas, kill another Zionist now, painted on the statue, death to America, of course, with 3 Ks. Death to Israel, death to Zion.
That is the cool way to do it.
Of course it is.
Yeah,
and also Ku Klux Klan, because America is run by the Klan, of course, that's right. I got a question. How come it's okay for the left to hate the Jews? Because obviously, if this was the people at Charlottesville who were doing this, wouldn't there be a bigger outcry?
I don't think that's an apples to apple type of comparison. Because look, I think what's driving a lot of these protests, a lot of them might be uninformed. Like I said, I don't agree with a lot of what's being done, but the images of children that are being killed through war in Palestine, I think, has got people reacting in a certain way. But people are forgetting that this started because of what happened on October 7th. And people are forgetting that there is an administration in the White House right now that is every day trying to figure out a solution to this. And things would be far worse without Anthony Blinken, who's, I think, aged 20 years in the last 8 months, going out there on a daily basis trying to get a peace agreement, a truce.
But what's going on is very upsetting and very horrifying. And I'm not defending anyone's actions. But with these college kids are doing that, we're excusing because they don't know what they're talking about, as if a Yale education isn't better than whatever's happening for these tiki torch IT guys who are in Charlottesville. They know what they're doing and they know what they're saying, and we think it's cute because they don't look threatening, because they're like comparative lit majors at Yale, but they have way more power than the people in Charlottesville. These are people who are going to
I think it's just
run
because
the
it's
country.
coming from the left. Everything is team sports now. Are you kidding? If the people in Charlottesville who were chanting Jews won't replace us, I mean, that's bad. It's not as bad as death, too. I think that's not deplorable.
It's absolutely deplorable.
Okay, well, if one side is deplorables and the other side does something that's, I mean, if I was a Holocaust survivor, and I guess there's not many of those left, but if I was, I would choose Jews will not replace us over death to Zionists.
Yeah, this is interesting because there's clearly a bit of a double standard. I think what's happened is that the left are able to shroud their anti-Israel campaign in virtue. Much harder for people on the far right to do that. Because when you say the Jews won't replace us, it's just very explicit. But when you can hide your Israel hatred in virtue of just caring for the Palestinians, despite the double standards, despite the lack of interest in other conflicts, despite the circumstances of Israel's fighting the war and the context, despite Israel's surgical precision in fighting, despite all those things. But still, they're able to make it seem virtuous because they say it's just moral indignation. That's how it perpetuates, and that's why it has more cultural acceptability. But at the same time, people are starting to wake up now. Certainly people like Bill Maher realizing, hold on one sec, there's no resistance that justifies rape. There's no resistance that justifies killing innocent babies intentionally, beheading, burning, raping. It's become so clear now that this whole issue that Israel's facing is not about a grievance of the Palestinians. It's about a hateful ideology which has existed prior to Israel's founding. In fact, it's a hateful ideology that existed for all of Israel's existence, which is hatred of the Jewish people, resentment to them and who the Jewish people are. I think there's a mix of, as Douglas Murray called it, there's the silly and the sinister. Yes, there are people who I think are, because of the way the media report and because of the information that they hear and because of the hysteria that's built up by those who do have sinister intentions, they are led to believe that Israel is a bad actor, and in many times they're just extremely ignorant, and with a bit of education they can be changed, and that's good. But then there are people who are actually a bit more sinister, and they know exactly what they're doing. They know that they're lying. It's like, I think about that photojournalist in Gaza who's writing these articles deploring Israel's terrible treatment of the Palestinians while he's holding a hostage. That is the sinister part. And that, in some ways, is the part that needs to be tackled more. That's dealing with the deeper roots of this whole problem. There's the useful idiots who will probably go away or can be changed with some enlightenment, and when you deal with the sinister roots of the Israel hatred. But going back to the point about the left and how they are able to just be so hostile to the Jewish people, they have a skewed moral compass. First of all, they think of the Jews as powerful, and therefore, if you're powerful, well, you must be bad. And they end up excusing the actions of who they consider to be powerless. The Palestinians in this case, and they have the soft bigotry of low expectations, where they attribute all fault to Israel and none to the other side. But a vague study of history will help you to understand that, number one, that is ridiculous. Look at Israel in comparison to the rest of the Middle East. Israel is much smaller than the surrounding Arab and Muslim countries and nations. But even still, even if you want to say that Israel's powerful, that's not the only moral paradigm through which you can look at a conflict or nations. Even when you are not in a position of power or have less power in regard to the other person, the other party, that doesn't mean you don't have moral agency. And so the whole leftist viewpoint, the progressive viewpoint that basically says powerful and we decide who is powerful and who isn't, bad. Powerless and we decide who is and who isn't powerless, good. That whole paradigm is messed up. It's what perpetuates this hostility to Israel, and it's immoral. It's un-Jewish. Judaism says, the Torah says, whether you are rich or poor, strong and powerful or weak and powerless, you have moral agency or morally accountable. Whether you're a king, you should walk around with a Torah scroll to show that you're held to the rule of law. If you're a poor person, a judge should not favor you. That's not morality, to say that the only way you look at things is through power dynamics. And until that changes, we're going to continue to see that problem. And this is partly why the Jewish people's message of morality is so timely, is so necessary. And it's really the call of the hour. And it's also, by the way, can't be ignored that the Jewish people have been teaching this message despite, for so much of our history, being oppressed, being powerless. And yet we've still stuck to this message of moral agency. So we have to continue to tell that message to people that say otherwise, that have these otherwise skewed, perverted moral compasses. We have to get that message across and be uncompromising in doing so. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.